going to go over the 5 stages of learning. For us, we're going to be relating it to martial arts. So learning a new technique, learning a new skill, a new concept, new strategy, whatever. But once you understand it, you can pretty much take it and apply it to anything. So 5 steps, I'll write these out for you. 1 is pretty obvious and the most self-explanatory. You have to learn it. Number 2 is you got to practice it. Number 3, you have to master it. Now, master it's a little bit of an icky word for me specifically because, as most of you probably heard us say, like, we don't fully believe in mastery because it's never something that ends. Mastery kind of,
it's a process.
Yeah, it kind of gives you a feeling of like you're at the end and there is no end. But we're talking about mastery like relative to the level that you're at. So just take that for what it is. Number 4 is functionalize. Okay, so we got to learn, practice, master, and functionalize. So functionalize is the main thing that we're talking about in this lesson. First off, what do you think functionalize would be?
I'm assuming functionalizing would be, well, you learn the technique, you practice it enough to where you master it at your level, and so now you're putting it into movement. You're getting the application of the technique.
Okay, so applying it was the key word that Coach Gunner used in that example. So you learn something, and then you're practicing it. Then mastering it's just like fine-tuning the details. You know, can you do it on the spot? You know, do you really have it down? You got all the individual steps down. And then functionalizing it is now, can you pull it off against someone that is actually resisting you? Examples would be for, let's take boxing. So you learn a jab. So you learn how to do it in the air, you practice it, practicing it in the air, you practice it in your shadow boxing, you practice hitting the bag, maybe we hold focus mitts for you, going through all that until you master it. Like I can wake you up in the middle of the night and you still got sleep in your eyes and I'm like, throw a jab, and you throw it in its perfect form. Then that's what we're considering that level of mastery. Is there more to learn on a jab? Of course, there's always more to learn, but at the level that we want you to have it down, you have it mastered. So mastery doesn't mean like you throw 10 jabs and 7 of them were good. It means 10 were good. But functionalize. To functionalize something, now that means that you got to put on some gloves and your partner's got to put on some gloves and you got to jab them when they don't want to be jabbed. So can you actually land it against somebody that doesn't want to get hit? Now there's levels of functionalization just like everything else. So that could be, can you land the jab on somebody that doesn't want to be jabbed? That could also be, can you land the jab when somebody's trying to jab you back? Right. And obviously you can see how that can continue to increase. You got like cardio kickboxing classes and stuff like that, and people will develop pretty good form. But then they actually, first time they ever like step out of that and try to like step into a ring and actually spar, it looks like they've never thrown a punch before. So they mastered the technique on the bag, or in the air, or on focus mitts, but as soon as the actual pressure came of them having to actually apply it, everything fell apart. So it wasn't that they didn't master all the details of the technique, they just didn't functionalize it. They didn't put the time in to make it functional. And then leads us to number 5, which is maintain. The main reason that I'm teaching you guys this lesson right now is so I can make you guys better students, better learners, and even more importantly, better partners. Nobody wants to be a shitty partner. Like if you're a shitty partner, nobody's gonna want to work with you, you're not gonna get better, and it's not good for anybody.
Oh, I see. So like if you know, if you have a little experience, if you know what stage that person is at, you're able to kind of conform yourself to them. That's kind of what you're getting at.
Well, every time we introduce something new, it's gonna be, you're learning it as I'm teaching it, or Coach Gunner's teaching it, or Coach Beverly's teaching you something. You're learning it, right? Well, then we have to go into the next stage. Is we say, okay, grab a partner, and now let's practice it. So you're practicing the move. But what happens a lot of times is there's an A or B to this. So there's 2 causes of what I'm about to say. A is the person's just kind of an asshole, and right, and the person's like, well, let's take the example of the armbar, right? So you're supposed to go practice an armbar. You've never done it before, and you're trying to practice it, and the person's like dropping all their weight on you, or they're pulling their arm out, and then they're gonna sit there and be like, well, yeah, I'm not gonna sit there and just let you do that to me in a fight. So why would I do it? Well, what are they talking about? What stage are they saying at that point?
The functionalization.
Yeah, they're trying to functionalize something that you
don't
haven't
even know.
you haven't practiced or mastered. So it's impossible. There's no way you're going to be functional at something that you haven't learned, practiced, and mastered first. So what screws that up is they're trying to skip over all these and go straight down to this functionalization stage, and you can't grow that way. Now, it's not always just somebody being a douchebag though. Sometimes it's a legitimate thing where you're trying to be a good partner and you just think like, well, I want my partner to really be able to do this and really be confident. And if I'm just sitting here letting them practice the move, or I'm kind of going with the motion and kind of helping turn so they can perfectly get their leg around my head, like it's not going to work that way. So I need to be a little bit more realistic for them. Sure, like that's good that you have the good intention of caring about your partner, but what you have to understand is you have to trust the system. The system is built for you to learn, practice, master, functionalize. So if your partner is not in the functionalized stage yet, then you are not helping them. No matter how much you think you are, you're not helping them. You are doing them a disservice by not allowing them to practice. Functionalize is what we're all about. But with that being said, there's a reason it's step number 4. So if you guys want to be good students and you want to increase the level of how fast you can go through this material and how fast you can grow and how good of a martial artist you can be, trust the system and just don't forget to go in order. Learn first, then practice, then master, and the functionalization will come. I promise you, we will make sure that you functionalize the material when we think you have it down. This process doesn't end. So even the example that I gave you on the jab, you're going to learn it, you're going to practice it, master, functionalize it, and you're going to maintain it. Then we're going to go on to all this other stuff. We're going to come back around. That was level 1. You're going to come back around on level 2. We're going to show you either new details on the jab that you already know or a whole new jab altogether, but even details. So that learn doesn't have to be for a technique. That can just be now you're learning new details.
Strategy.
Now you're practicing the jab with those new details. Now you're mastering those new details, and now you got to go back and you got to functionalize those new details. So that's why I'm saying that's why the master is in there, because it's relative to what we're talking about. You're always going to have new things. You're going to have new variations of that arm bar. You're going to have new strategies of how to set it up. You're going to have new variations of the jab. So it never ends. The cycle. So anyway, that is your 5 stages of learning. Hopefully that helps you guys. And let us know if you have any questions.